Evening.
Norm, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Lois.
So it
Hope
looks like
things are
you're
well.
good to go.
We're good to go. All right, welcome to the February meeting of the Salem Public Library Advisory Board. I have been told that it would be nice to have some music in our meeting. So let me see if I can do this. I'm not a high-tech person. Okay, wait a minute. Can you hear this? Go into the library. Okay. So, are there any additions or corrections to the meeting? I mean, to the minutes. All right. Then I would like a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, give a signal of some kind. Yes, yes, there's Francine. Okay, super, that is done. Was there any public comment that was sent in or written?
There was public comment. Give me 1 second. I'm working on pulling that up.
Okay. Hi, Francine. So do I read this or what? Hello?
Well, I can comment if Kim or Norm, and maybe you can fill in here. This is Michelle Teed. You can, or we can have this routed to the board members who are attending. Either way, this will be part of the minutes for this meeting. So it will be part of the permanent record of what we did here. Another option is we can just take a minute and read it on the screen if folks are able to see it. So I think you have several options.
Okay, why don't we take about a minute so people can read this? I can't get mine to scroll down, but.
I think Clarissa has to scroll since it's her screen share, I think.
Okie dokie.
And just out of curiosity, Lois, do all the lab members have a copy of this?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see about getting it emailed to everybody. Of course, as an attachment for the meeting itself, as part of the minutes for the next month that you convene. But in the meantime, too, we can see if we can get it sent to you all as just a more convenient way of having a copy of it.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Clarissa, for scrolling down. It is something that we probably should send out because it has a lot of information and people will probably want to spend some time looking at it.
Lois, may I interject? And this is Denise.
Yes.
This is just that report card that Jim Shepke will be meeting with us next month to discuss anyway. So we
Yes.
can read it on our own and be prepared for what he's going to say next month.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. So this will be sent out in an email and everyone can look at it, print it out, do whatever you want to do with it. And hopefully Jim will be here next time. I'm going to invite him.
Lois, you're cut off. We don't hear you.
Okay.
Oh.
We'll have this sent out to you and then you can look at it at your leisure and study it. And next time I will invite Jim to come and speak to us, just like I invite Kate to come and speak to our group from the foundation, and she appears on Zoom, and that seems to be like something we do. So we will do that next month. So our next item is the Teen Advisory Board report. Looks like it will be Katie. Katie, take it away, Katie.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Katie. I use they, them pronouns, and I go to Summit Learning Charter. And this month, the Teen Advisory Board members have been helping with packing the Take and Make crafts for January and February. This group has also started looking into ideas for how to host a virtual murder mystery party on Zoom. Everyone is looking forward to playing parts and acting mysterious and doing all of the parts in that. And then several members, including myself, of the Teen Advisory Board have agreed to be part of the focus group as part of the strategic planning process and are eager to be part of that conversation. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much, Katie. Any questions for Katie about the teen program? All right, Katie, go have fun, unless you want to listen to this meeting. Okay. Steve, you missed our theme song.
I am so sorry. I just got to Austin.
Steve, we can't hear you.
Yeah, so sorry I'm late. I just got to Austin visiting my son, and that's why I was. So, what was the theme song?
Do you want to hear it?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay.
But Lois, don't
Yes.
move it away from your speaker. Keep
Do
it in
what?
front of your speaker or
Put it in front of the speaker.
your microphone.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Got a special need. It's a place I always go when I want a book to read. Going to the library. library.
Thank you.
All righty. That's our new theme song. Okay. Chair's report. I wrote a report. Everybody read it, of course. And the only thing I have to add is what I didn't put in is that we still need, we have an opening for somebody on our library advisory board. So if you know somebody that might be good, and we're really trying to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it'd be nice, to have somebody that would present, help our diversity board. Have them contact me and I will show them how to apply. So any questions about my report? No, okay. So city librarians report, take it away, Kim.
Thank you, Lois. I sent the city librarian report with the agenda packet, and as Lois requested, she would like everybody to read it ahead of time and then let me know if they have any questions. So I'll spend this time answering questions about the city librarian report. Does anybody have any questions about it? Our big event for Salem, of course, for February is Salem Reads. So it has all those great programs that Sonia helped plan with the foundation. So we're very excited.
I had a question. I noticed in the minutes that Carol had said that the Friends of the Library were going to look at the budget that you're submitting for the library. And I was wondering, is that something that we can get a copy of and see what you're asking for the funding for next year?
Are you talking about what we're asking for from the Friends or from the city? Oh.
Hello?
Were you wanting to know that? I think the report Carol mentioned was what we were requesting from the Friends.
Oh, okay. Well, is there some way we can find out what you're requesting from the city as far as the budget goes?
I think it gets, I'll have to defer to Norm because we're
Yeah.
working on the budget.
Yeah, we're working on the budget right now, and so we won't have a formalized proposal yet for another month or so. But as it stands now, we are anticipating a status quo budget for the coming year in light of some forecasts that we're seeing for the next 3 years that are quite sobering for the city as a whole. So if we can continue with the budget that we have already established for this year, roll that into next year and use it to our fullest advantage with our new facility, I think we'll be in very good shape. But there are going to be a lot of other competing interests, and it's going to be a very challenging budget season, again, with some forecasts that we've just looked at earlier this week. So very early stages, nothing of which is news that is fit to print per se, but I can say that directionally, yeah, we're going to probably see a repeat of this year's budget and next year's budget with no anticipated increases. That would go for the entirety of community development too. At least any part of community development that's in the general fund. Does that help at all?
Well, it's not very good news.
No.
Go ahead, Catherine, and then I'll say.
So what about all the federal dollars that are pouring into the state and the city? Isn't that something that we can tap into in some way? Because the hours have been so limited in our library and in the West Salem branch. We have our hours are open like half the number of hours that Corvallis and Eugene libraries are. So is there any way we can tap into that money?
There's a question of eligibility with the ARPA dollars, as I'll refer to them. But then there's also a question of competition. And I don't know if any of you had the chance, but more recently, maybe a month ago, we had a pretty substantial work session with the council regarding homelessness and regarding the needs for a response team when it comes to all of our improvised camping sites, as well as new formal micro shelter locations to provide more housing to that part of the community. And so when you look at just those two needs alone, be it for, again, responding to needs at the improvised campsites, cleaning up the areas where we see a lot of impact, or in providing more housing for our homeless population, those two needs right there by themselves, to do anything that could have any substance and any impact on the problems, will absorb, if not all of the ARPA dollars that are available, then the vast majority of them. And these are a one-time set of dollars that we have received. And so anything that would involve the library, if it's not a capital expense, meaning, you know, some sort of improvement to the buildings, let's say, or something else of that nature, like involving equipment, though anything else would be a recurring expense, such as, you know, more staff to support more hours, that sort of thing. And so the ARPA dollars wouldn't be able to sustain that as, again, a one-time award, for lack of a better term, to the city. So those dollars, again, two things. I'm not sure if it's eligible or not. I just don't know that off the top of my head. But I also know that, more importantly, point two, that the council is looking very seriously at dedicating as much, if not all of that, as they can to the homeless need. I'll just say too, just to paint a broader picture again of what I can share from our early discussions as a city leadership team, that those are the needs that I can cover right now regarding homelessness, but then also other needs that exist for the library also exist in equal measure for fire, for police, and for other aspects of, you know, our streets and our bridges and our parks. So it's, like I say, it's not good news. You're right, Lois. But it's also part of a broader picture of where many more needs are also competing for the same limited amount of dollars.
Go ahead, Steve.
So when would we be able to see the new budget?
Yeah, formal submittals are by the end of this month from departments to the budget office. But I don't have a solid timeline for when we would then go straight to our budget committee meetings. I don't know that those have been officially established yet, but when the budget committee does convene, which typically speaking is going to be possibly late March, potentially early April, that's when it will be made public and available for everyone to review. And of course, we can certainly get copies to anyone as simply being a public document and you being a board member. So it'll be, I would say, rough guesstimate, 2 months, maybe a month and a half before we can have it available. But without the budget office here to give me, you know, clear specifics, that's the best I can do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that we can have some kind of input into the budget process? And I think actually in our bylaws, it says something about we're supposed to approve the budget. So can you give some clarity on that?
The formal role from the bylaws, I again don't have that top of my head, and
I
you know,
can
this
tell
will.
you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
No, that was Lois. That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was Michelle.
I always
Okay,
have
well,
my bylaws right here.
all right, good.
Section Article 6, Section 1B, preparing and submitting, this is our powers and duties, preparing and submitting through the library administrator to the city manager the annual budget request.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So.
So you're going to run that by us?
Well, a couple of things. When it says budget request, that would be requests from lab to the city manager and the library administrator. So overall, if there are requests from the lab to be considered as a part of the budget, then you can certainly submit those to us. Yeah, but that's how I read that particular portion of the bylaws. And I know that this isn't a formal topic, so if it's better for us to unpack this further, it can certainly be a topic at the next meeting, and I'll certainly come with a lot more and better information. I wasn't anticipating these things. It's good stuff to talk about all the same.
Okay.
Again, though, that's how I read it.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, you said that you think that the budget will be about the same. Does that mean that the total city commitment to the library will be about the same? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, status quo budget. So when we
so within
Go
within
ahead.
that, so the question is how that's split up, where that goes. So it seems like it would be nice for us to kind of see where this stuff is projected to go, because we may have recommendations that that lump goes differently than it has been for this year in our advisory capacity.
So
Is that?
yeah, that makes total sense. You want to review these things and then try to see if there is something within the proposed budget that would make sense for you to base a request upon. So totally fine. And again, if this were teed up as a formal item on the next agenda whenever the lab meets again, then maybe by then I've got a formal budget that I can share. And if not, then we can at least talk it through in the rough proportions based on the budget that we have today that's already adopted, and we can certainly go through it. One thing that I think would be useful if we do have this conversation is for me to just really make clear just how the budget is currently structured. I think all of you know that it is very strongly geared towards personnel and personnel costs. This is, of course, a very hands-on service we provide. And so outside of the personnel costs, you then see the remainder of the funds within the budget dedicated towards materials and services and a few other ancillary components of different programs. And well, anyways, we'll give it a basic, clear overview and can go from there. Again, either based on this coming year's budget or on the one we currently have and get everyone familiar. Happy to do that.
For next month.
Whenever you meet again. Yeah.
Next month. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, is the city manager restricting all of the departments in the city to status quo budget requests?
It's not a formal restriction, it's a de facto one. It just simply is that when it comes to anything that we have we'll bring this a lot more clarity in the coming months as we get to our budget committee sessions. But in the time that I've been here, any changes that we've been able to make to the budget, any sort of enhancements or improvements to the budgets, we've only been able to figure out in very small ways, because otherwise anything that we can do requires reallocating funds from other divisions, other programs within the general fund, and that comes at a very high cost. So it's not a formal thing, but it is where we have been for quite some time as we try to address our structural deficit within the general fund as a whole.
So that's not a no. So not every department is asked to keep the status quo. Is that what you're saying?
No department is formally asked to keep the status quo. It's what I'm currently recommending. It's what every department is recommending to the best of my knowledge. And of course, we're still in the early stages here. But as it stands right now, starting where we are, again, with the structural deficit in the general fund, it is where we are beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize, Norm. I didn't know that was going to come into my processes of thinking, that question about the budget, but I was just thinking about the minutes and how the Friends were going to look at the budget. So we'll catch you next time. Next month,
Certainly.
March 9th. Be prepared. We're going to have questions. All
Of
right. I know
course.
you are always prepared. So let's move on. Friends, Carol, you said you didn't really have a report. Is that correct?
I don't know why anyway, sorry, I couldn't unmute. That is correct. There is no news.
Okay.
Unless somebody has a question.
Yeah, if anybody has a question for the Friends. All right, on to the foundation.
Do you want to see the Friends library budget? I mean, it's kind of up to Kim, I guess, but I have no objection.
No, I thought you were looking at the budget for the library. Okay.
No,
right.
That would be your bailiwick.
Okay, got it. Okay, Gretchen, what have you got? Any news from the foundation except the Great Salem Reads?
Okay, no formal report other than the Salem Reads is going beautifully. And I personally want to give a shout out to Sonia, who has been an absolute star in her organization of this. It's been wonderful. And I hope people have been able to take advantage of it.
Great. Any questions for Gretchen? Okay. So, we're going to have another musical interlude. Wait a minute. All right. Let's see if I can do it. All right, this is not a boring meeting. Okay, discussion items. City librarian recruitment strategic plan. Norm, you're up.
Yeah, so as it relates to the city librarian recruitment, I'll have an update there. And then for the strategic plan, I'll hand it over to Kim to provide that information. Good news and a clear path ahead for all of us with the recruitment. The position is posted and it will close on the 21st of this month. That's about a 3-week advertising window, which I think is going to be sufficient. We've worked with Clarissa to make sure that we can have this on the ALA's job board, which goes out to all professional librarians across the country. It's their main professional organization, of course. And so the job is open. Applications are presumably coming in. I won't really know what we get until the window is closed, the advertisement is concluded, and then I'll get a packet from HR to then begin a screening process. Our initial screening process for all applied candidates will start on the week of March 4th. So we'll close the position and the advertisement on the 21st. I'll begin the screening process with HR and with library staff on the 4th, that week in March. Finalists will be selected from the initial screening interviews, and we'll set a tentative goal right now. And again, emphasis on the word tentative. We intend, though, to have our finalist interview process begin on March 17th. And so this is where, as last time, we'd like some representation from the Library Advisory Board as well as the Friends, as well as the foundation, to formulate a stakeholder panel. And this stakeholder panel would interview each of our finalist candidates with questions that that you all have developed and that we've been able to then review and approve through HR, so that you can be a part of this process, and we can hopefully select our next city librarian by the end of that day, March 17th. So this is where we are today. This is where we're heading. And I do have some next steps for the Library Advisory Board. I would like for you to please consider what questions you want to ask of candidates during the finalist round. And I want you to please provide those questions. You can do it each on your own. You can do it as a coordinated group, however you see fit. But I'd like for you to please provide those by the 25th, February 25th, to Clarissa by email. The reason I need them by the 25th is that we want to take all the questions that we get, either from this body or from staff or others, and we want to make sure that HR can review and approve them for the wording, for what they cover. They have a very specific way in which they want to look at interview questions to make sure that we fit all the necessary requirements, be for equity or accessibility for our candidates. Once that's done, if you don't have questions that you wish to pose, that's fine. We can definitely come up with plenty of our own. But once that's complete, we'll then take that list of questions. We'll formulate the questions that each panel will be able to then share. I'll do my best to make sure that all questions that you pose can be asked in some shape or form within the final set that we have for each panel. And those panels will need to also have the members that you wish to be a part of the process. So the stakeholder panel will have 5 members. 5 seems like a very good number. It's not too overwhelming for a candidate when they come in to experience the city. And what we would like is we would like to have 2 lab members. We'd like to have 2 foundation members, and I'll let Kate know this, of course. And we'll also have a representative from the Friends. So imagine that being a panel, that panel coming together on March 17th, interviewing candidates, providing the questions, judging the answers, giving feedback to myself and the rest of the hiring group, and us being able to use that to make a great selection. That's our idea. That's where we are today. So, oh, and one other thing, it may go without saying, but for March 17th, when we do have our full experience, it will all be virtual. It's best that way, of course, given the circumstances. So anyone who is a member of the stakeholder panel, please be sure that you're going to be capable of attending and participating in the same way that you do these library advisory board meetings. So to put a fine note on it, the position's open, closes the 21st. We then want to start our initial screening of candidates on the week of March 4th. We'll then have a tentative set of finalists scheduled, we hope, for March 17th to conduct our interview with the community at large. There will be some component of a community experience, I think, too, but we're still working that out. But for the one part I know for sure, library advisory panel, we need 2 members to go with the other stakeholders to be a part of this on the 17th. And any questions or comments? I covered a lot there about where we are and where we're going, but there's some critical pieces here that I want to make sure I convey. So any questions I can answer on this, just please speak up.
Go ahead, Steve, and then Catherine.
I just want to thank you. It sounds like a good process, and it's happening pretty quick, which we all appreciate. So, Kara, push on.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Catherine.
So will the questions that you're requesting be used for the initial interviews with the applicants, or the final round that some lab members might be involved in?
The final round. We want your questions to be the ones that you can ask them directly, and so that would be in the final round.
Okay.
Michelle?
Thank you, Chair Stark. I think everybody's doing a good job with this. So just a reminder that if you send it by email, it should not be to more than 4 members of the lab so that we don't have a meeting by email. But what I've seen of emails recently, everybody's keeping that in mind and doing a good job. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And just wanted to mention that.
I had a question, Norm. It looks like you're doing a good job, and you're getting. We need to get this person hired. Is there any possibility that that someone from the Library Advisory Board could have a say in who the finalists are?
No, only because when it comes to the initial screening, a lot is going to be dependent on how many candidates we have. We may only have 5 candidates and that apply, and only 2 that meet minimum qualifications. I'm not quite sure what we're going to expect yet. And plus, it is the typical practice, especially when it comes to any sort of hiring of this nature, that we do the screening first to make sure that we meet all of our necessary requirements from an HR standpoint, to make sure that our selections are based as much as possible, as deeply as possible, on the specifics of the qualifications themselves. And if there's any screening that does occur that has some discretionary component to it, it's going to be the sort of thing that's really going to be based on what I and what staff and what HR themselves see as being appropriate at that point in time. When we get to the finalist round, we're really at a point where stakeholders like yourselves can really have more space, frankly, more space to provide insight on the discretionary components, like, is this person appear to you to be a more preferred leader in their style, or that person, et cetera. That's the sort of stuff that we really need your help with and that you can provide insight on. But the initial screening, again, it's a little bit more technical. And so we want to make sure that we keep that aligned with what we would normally do with any other screening process.
But you will take our questions, and then you will decide what questions of ours get asked.
Well, let's look at it this way. When it comes to the panel, the stakeholder panel, and what you all will be providing on March 17th, the questions, I want them to be yours to the fullest extent possible, be they from Foundation or from Lab or from Friends. But here's what can happen. I'll solicit these questions from Foundation. I'll solicit from Friends if they're interested, and of course from you all. And we might get as many as 30 questions, right? But there may only be room and space to only have 6 or maybe 7 if we're lucky. It depends. But which of those 6, which of those 7, at that point in time, working closely with HR, since this is a very unusual way to go about things, to have this much collaboration with a stakeholder body, I want to make sure that they get the first run, first of all, to see what of these questions are best suited to ask a candidate, which of these questions are repetitive, redundant. I'm going to rely on our HR professionals for that first. And then if we still end up with, say, 10 or 12 questions, and we just haven't got it down all the way to the 7 that we need to ask, well, then there might be a chance there for you all to start to weigh in on this too. But my suspicion is that when HR gets this group of questions, they're going to be able to cut it pretty quickly, with full respect to the intent of what you're wanting to ask. They'll be able to cut it down pretty quickly to the 6 or 7 that we can work with and feel confident about, and that can still reflect what you're wanting to see and what you're wanting to say. So in other words, all of that is me trying to say that we want you to be an integral part of this. We want you to ask the questions that you want to ask. We got to also make sure, though, at every point that what we do pose, whether it be questions in an interview or selections made beforehand with our screening process, that it fits everything that HR needs in order to make sure that this is a fair, equitable, open, and clean experience, for lack of a better term. So my gut tells me that I'm going to get a lot of questions from you all, and that's a good thing. And then my gut also tells me that HR is going to be able to winnow that down in a way that's going to be satisfying for you all and good for our candidates.
I understand that Kim will probably be applying, and so I assume any questions that we send to Clarissa will be confidential, will remain confidential, so Kim does not see them.
As mentioned in my initial guidance, yes, please send any and all comments or questions to Clarissa, just to Clarissa. And then between Clarissa and myself and HR, we'll make sure that that we have the right exchange and flow of information. And like Michelle said, be sure as you do this to definitely just keep it an email from yourself to Clarissa as best as you can.
We could put them in code.
Yeah,
That'd be
right,
kinda cool.
right.
It's like
right.
have a library code. Just kidding. All right.
Let me just stress too, what we're doing here is highly unusual as someone who's done several of these hirings in the past. And it's all with an interest of trying to give you all as much involvement as you can have. So there's a lot of P's and Q's, there's a lot of dotting of I's and crossing of T's, and I'm confident that you all can help us thread this needle and do it well without having to compromise anything. But please do know that we're going to do it all as best we can, just so that, yeah, you can stay involved.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Norm? And what about, are you doing the update on the strategic plan too, Norm?
That's all Kim.
That's Kim. Okay. Thanks, Norm.
Okay, so the update on the strategic plan is that we're moving forward. We're getting together one-on-one and focus groups, and we're starting to plan those. We're working with Coraggio to set up some virtual meetings and move forward. So that should be happening like March and April. And then we'll from there, we'll gather that data and keep going. And we hope, you know, to finish it probably, I think the timeline ends up in maybe early fall.
Okay, any questions for Kim about the strategic plan? All right. Kim, now you're going to talk about library fines.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and share my screen. Let me see, and it should come up with my PowerPoint. So let me know if it works. Do you see it? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for listening to my presentation tonight. I think you all know I believe going fine free is important for our community and a way we can expand current services to invite patrons back into the library while supporting our mission statement. So as some of you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, Salem Public Library, like many libraries across the state, decided to stop charging fines. So we have not been charging fines since 2020. Moving forward, we'd like to support our community by removing fines from patrons' accounts and not charge fines in the future. So I'm going to talk about some of the misconceptions about fines. The first one being that fines ensure materials are returned on time. Many libraries that have eliminated fines in recent years report just the opposite. For instance, the Chicago Public Library saw a 240% increase in return books in the month after they eliminated fines in 2019. Salt Lake City's public library saw late returns drop from 9% to 4% after fines were eliminated. 6 months after fine elimination at High Plains Library District in Northern Colorado, the library saw an increase in circulation and 95% of their materials were returned within 1 week of their original due date. In a study by Hansel and Bergen, of public libraries in North Carolina called Hard Facts About Overdues, they observed no significant difference in overdue rates between libraries that charge fines and those that did not. Another misconception are that fines are a significant part of our budgets. I sent in the packet, it's a pictogram of an iceberg, where at the top you can see the idea that fines collect a certain amount of money, but there's a lot of hidden costs into collecting that money. So we're really using dollars to collect dimes. And we'll talk about that a little bit more because that slide is also included in this. Another misconception is that fines teach people civic responsibility. As put by Anthony Marks, who is the CEO of the New York Public Library, people respond to the idea of fine elimination as if it imposes a moral hazard on society at large. Without the threat of punishment, what motivation do citizens have to be responsible library patrons? A key misunderstanding in the discussion of eliminating fines is the idea that it will eliminate all patron responsibility in kind. Removing fines does not mean removing all consequences or even removing all monetary consequences for not returning library materials. In most systems that have eliminated fine, patrons who fail to return items within a given time frame will be charged for replacement, and that is true for us too. The replacement fee is waived when the item is returned, even if it is past the due date. So these are some of the misconceptions about fines, including that they are an effective tool. On this next slide, I'm going to talk about what fines actually do. And this is based on studies and reports from other library resources. So they exacerbate social inequity, cause a barrier to using the library, create negative community engagement, continue punitive protectionism versus shared ownership, and create stress for staff, and they take staff time that could be better used. So why do we want to go fine free? It puts our community first, which is one of the most important things. It advances racial equity. It evens out socioeconomic disparities. It alleviates stressful confrontations with patrons. It saves staff time, which can be better spent helping patrons. It treats print and digital materials the same. And library fines are a decreasing part of an overall library budgets across the United States. So I'm going to talk about each of these points. Community first. Our communities thrive when people have access to programs and services, materials they need to pursue their goals or interests. People should be able to use the library without worrying about if they will be judged because of overdue fines. Kids are often the most impacted by fines. Fines create a chilling effect for parents to use the library. And also, kids are the ones who cannot get to the library to return their items and avoid fines. Removing fines advances racial equity. Library fines worsen existing inequities that disproportionately impact people of color and low-income communities. Studies show that fines and fees exacerbate the wealth gap faced by people of color. According to the Aspen Institute, Black and Latino households have less debt than white households. However, because of inequalities in income and greater access to wealth in white households, the ability for Blacks and Latinos to repay debt is often drastically reduced. Fees are imposed inequitably and shown to be ineffective in eliminating past due returns while disproportionately affecting communities of color. So these images show where we want to get. We want to get to this third picture where we're removing all barriers, evening out socioeconomic disparities. These are a couple of quotes from some library directors. While fines for overdue items may seem like a small burden, they can create a major barrier to service for those who are struggling financially. Too many people have made the choice to stop using the library because of the inability to pay or fear of accruing fines. So actually, fines actually are keeping people away from the library. So it's not only a barrier, but it's also a chilling effect. And I'll let you read that other quote there. The Baldwin Free Library in Birmingham, Michigan, their library director said, once someone owes a late fine, they are less likely to visit the library again. And fear of owing late fines can cause patrons not to borrow the items they need. We hope being fine-free will encourage prior users to come back to the library, as well as encourage new users to explore our offerings. And I worked at for Maricopa County Library District when we went fine-free, and we saw a huge increase of patrons coming back to the library. So library directors across the country are advocating for fine-free. Some quotes are here. And I really like these quotes. Overdue fines are a regressive method of raising revenue. They hurt the most those who cannot afford them the least, create stress-filled interactions, and require significant amounts of staff time to manage. The library spent $150,000 of our payroll dollars on staff time dealing with fines. This staff time could be better focused on providing excellent, positive library service instead of on negative interactions around fines. Cities and public libraries can take steps to reform inequitable fines and fees that often strip wealth from communities of color and trap low-income people in a web of debt. During times of crisis, like we're in right now, coming out of a pandemic or not, libraries must remain a trusted resource for tools and information for everybody. Again, we need to break down the barriers. Research shows that communities of color are more likely to be impacted by unpaid library fees and are grappling with a higher percentage of suspended library cards. This is a growing concern for many municipal leaders who want better ways to engage and support community residents. Fines are not the only options for encouraging timely returns. The City of Salem is currently working on a DEI initiative. Fine Free supports this work. At Salem Public Library, we care about our staff. Patron interactions over fines can be stressful to staff and add to an already stressful work environment. Staff in the library are dealing in customer service. Because libraries serve as equitable spaces for all community members, staff can sometimes find themselves dealing with difficult behaviors. Customers can often get angry when faced with overdue charges. Staff are put in the uncomfortable decision of deciding whose fines to waive. Public libraries are documenting increases in negative patron interactions. In 2020, the Toronto Public Library reported increases of violence against librarians within an 8-year period, highlighting upticks in violent and threatening behaviors and verbal abuse. And you can see here some of the ways that the emotions that library staff feel when they have to deal with difficult situation. This leads to behavior changes resulting in reduced enthusiasm, reduction of work engagement, higher absenteeism, depression, and people actually leaving the profession. This is the iceberg image that was sent with your packet. So at the top here, we have the revenue, but what's hidden under here is all the hidden costs. And I want to thank Sonia too for working on this for me. So you can see here at staff time, a 10-minute conversation costs the library $4.83. Overdue notices cost an average of 67 cents to send out. The mental health is hard to put a price on. The cost of collecting a digital payment is 41 cents. It's $8.95 to send somebody to collections. There's also a hidden cost in what staff could be doing instead of charging fines. So for us to collect $5, it actually costs us $5.92. So again, we're using dollars to collect dimes. This is a growing trend. Libraries across the countries are going fine-free. So here you have a map of all the libraries, and there's more than this, but these, at the time that I got this was a map of libraries that have gone fine-free in the United States. So when the Chicago Public Library went fine-free, in the first few weeks after the announcement, we had an insane circulation numbers. 20% of block cards belong to kids. No one benefits from blocking a child's library card. Again, children cannot get to the library by themselves unless they can walk there. So these are libraries in the state of Oregon, including Vancouver, Washington, which have gone fine-free. So over here, you can see that some of the biggest leaders in our library communities, Multnomah County Library, Washington County Libraries, Springfield just went fine-free, Corvallis Benton is fine-free, all of the Fort Vancouver regional libraries are fine-free, and in CCRLS, these are ones that are preparing to go fine-free or have, and more are on the way. So it's Dallas, Dayton, McMinnville, Monmouth, and Woodburn. This gives you some information about Salem's current blocked users. So we have 8,000 people that can't use their card because it's blocked. 6,000, over 6,000 are in collection. 2,297 are blocked by fines, and 2,700 of those are youth and teens. So in addition to this, we could potentially have 8,000 more active users if we reduce those fines. As I mentioned in the beginning, removing fines supports our mission statement. This includes reducing barriers, increasing library use, increasing morale, better use of our resources, increase items returned because there's no fear, good PR for the library. Staff don't have to deal with money as often. Some libraries have seen an increase in lost books being returned and a renewed appreciation for our library. The renewed appreciation for our libraries can affect local businesses and civic leaders as well. Opportunities for collaboration and outreach between the library and the community are potential as a result of being fine-free. This sentiment was also seen in other libraries, with patrons returning to the library after extended period of time away. Librarians at St. Paul Public Library noted an increase in circulation, active users, after over 5 years of consistent decreases. The Contra Costa County Library also mentioned circulation increases, which they had not experienced since 2011. We're also dealing with coming back from a pandemic, and we would like to see our circulation numbers increase. We think that removing fines is a good way to welcome people back as we get into fuller services. So I just want to thank you again for listening to my presentation, and I hope that the lab will support this initiative. And now, when in doubt, ask the librarian. Does anybody have any questions?
Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh,
So is your proposal to discontinue the automatic renewals policy if we go fine-free?
No, we would continue automatic renewals. That's part of CCRLS.
So then I have some comments when others have asked their questions.
Are there any other questions?
I do.
Just a sec here. I'm going to stop sharing.
So when I first looked into this, I looked at a lot of the libraries and their policies, and one thing that I found very attractive was for actually not the overdue fines part, which obviously I wholeheartedly supported in bringing us forward a few months ago and in the past, but also the Woodburn Library has a very unique protocol for anybody under 18 for their the fines for unreturned items like lost items or damaged or whatever. They allow the forgiveness of every 15 minutes of monitored reading forgives $1 of those fines. And I think once again, focusing on the needs of children and the powerlessness that they are in their roles, which they're often not responsible for if the car got towed and never seen again and the books were in it or whatever. I think that I'd just like to remind the group about that. It's the only place I saw that had that kind of a special consideration especially for children.
I do know when I worked at Multnomah County Library, we had a policy of not charging for damaged children's books, children or teens books, because we wanted to make sure that they got loved and used, and and we were willing to replace them and make parents like just really encourage that early literacy. So there's always room to like expand fine free.
Kim, do you have a number of how many, do we block people's cards now in Salem if they have a fine?
Well, right now we're checking in things fine free.
Okay, so nobody is blocked.
Well, people are blocked because we haven't gone back and removed the blocks that were on previously, right? And
So So my question is, so say we do the fine free, and then somebody has lost a book, and then they're expected to pay for that. What if they can't pay for that?
So we have the ability to waive fees. So fines are for overdue, fees are for charges like damage. So we have the ability to waive fees in circumstances for sure. Like, let's say, there's a lot of things that can happen. And also, when we look at, if we look at a book and it's circulated, it's had its day in the sun, then I don't think, we'd probably just waive that anyway at this point, whether it was, whether we had that as a policy or not, right?
So I guess my question is like, if somebody's lost a book and they can't afford to pay for it, would their card be blocked? Even under the fine free?
It could be, but of course, we could also work with that patron to remove that fee. Does that make sense? And we so there's also, we do food for fines. So maybe we would do food for fees, right? Or, there's other options, or having them during summer reading, being able to read off your fees on your card. There's a lot of room for adding on to fine free.
Any other questions? I know that Catherine has some comments, and she has done some research, I think, about circulation concerns. So go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so I think that there's some clear, real advantages to going fine free, especially bringing patrons back and freeing up staff time. But there are also a couple of potential trade-offs. And I think it's important for us to take a look at these before going fine free, because it's not an easily reversible policy decision. Research, for example, states that there's no one size fits all approach to addressing these issues, and says that automatic renewals can be an alternative in and of itself to going fine free. And there certainly are libraries in Oregon that have just one or the other. And we have automatic renewals, and it seems that except in the case of holds, patrons can keep books for 12 weeks with no fines, up from what was three weeks a few years ago. So I'm guessing that has brought some patrons back and reduced fines in those cases, while at the same time providing for reasonable hold times for other patrons. That seems a nice compromise to me. And the only advantage I can see to adding a fine-free policy to automatic renewal is that patrons who don't return books with holds on them aren't fined, while
So I think-
patrons.
I will
Just a minute.
say, I think you could do both, right? And there's many libraries that do both. So CCRLS does do the automatic renewal. That's a CCRLS thing, so that all the libraries that participate in our consortium have that loan rule, right? So the way it's looking now, just from my experience in attending the meetings, most of those libraries are on their way to going fine free, as well as like Fort Vancouver libraries. They do automatic renewal. I believe Multnomah, I'm not sure, but I could check on that. So I don't think it's about the automatic renewal, because we still have people accumulating fines even with the automatic renewal, right? People, and it's generally, it's going to be children usually, because they can't get to the library, or it's going to be people that have some sort of crisis. We know a lot of people have had crisis in their families during these last 2 years with medical issues. And it's usually or experiencing homelessness, or, transitory living conditions. So, they have other things that are kind of preemptively taking the place of the priority of returning their library books. So I think there's a lot of libraries that do both. And I think I would recommend that that's what we do. I will say, like, our super library users, like our super library readers, they tend to check out a book and return it before the 3 weeks, and get through a lot of books. So we don't even see the 21 days happening before they're able to get what they want. And we do also have the Lucky Day collection. So that gives people the opportunity to get those really brand new, hot off the presses books without putting on hold. And we see a lot of our super library users using those.
So let me just finish my thoughts if I can. So yes, I know that a lot of libraries have both automatic renewals and are fine free, but it still strikes me that with automatic renewals, people have 12 weeks to have a book unless there's a hold on it. And the only advantage I see to adding fine-free policy to automatic renewal is that patrons who don't return books with holds on them aren't fined. In the meanwhile, patrons with holds would have to wait up to 12 weeks and longer if there are multiple holds, and disadvantaging, I think, some patrons to advantage others who already enjoy an effective fine-free policy except for holds seems unfair to me. And when I say this, I'm not speaking of patrons as two separate groups. There could be overlap between them. Our library has a lower ratio of books per capita than many libraries in Oregon, which makes maintaining a vibrant circulation a concern. While fine-free may or may not increase circulation, and there's certainly mixed results among libraries. It's not all one direction. The availability of desired books may well decline, holds may accumulate, or patrons may just give up on trying to check out a book. So to me, it seems a fair compromise to have automatic renewals. I think it's very generous, 12 weeks. We've gone from 3 weeks to 12 weeks. And that the good potential of hold times being greatly increased and people giving up on being able to find books they're looking for is a real concern. So those are my thoughts, and I value and respect input and thoughts of other people on this issue. But I wanted to be sure that we all were aware of the trade-offs of going this route.
So I can speak to the holds. Generally, the people that put on holds are again going to be the people that are very familiar with how the library works. So you know, a lot of kids come in, they get some books, they get their library card, they get their books, something happens in their family, they don't end up returning those books. And then, you know, that's kind of the situation that's most likely to happen. And as far as our books per capita, we are, you know, we're always increasing the amount of books we have, especially our electronic resources, because we've seen, like, while our physical books have decreased in circulation, our electronic books have really soared in circulation. So, and those are, you know, those are different. We don't charge fines for those. They just come off your card. They can't be renewed either. So, or they can be if nobody's waiting for them. So, and books on hold aren't automatically renewed. So if you put a hold on a book, it's not going to renew for that other person. You're going to get it, right? It's not going to renew 3 times if somebody has a hold on it.
It's not going to renew, but they're not going to be fined. Right?
Yeah, if it doesn't get returned, if it doesn't get returned within a window of time, they'll get charged for the book.
Well, but after 12 weeks.
No, after the original. So once something is on hold, it doesn't automatically renew.
So you're saying that if somebody checks out a book for 3 weeks and after 2 weeks somebody puts a hold on it, then they need to return it within that 3-week period?
Yes.
Or else, well, what if we go find?
If it's overdue for a certain amount of time, then they'll be charged for it.
Charged for the replacement of the book?
Mm-hmm.
So that is that
processing fee.
Is that a 25 or 30 day?
It's also, I believe it's 21 days. It used to be 42, but since everybody's going fine free, we decided to align it with the checkout time.
So, okay, well, that makes a difference.
Yeah, I've had a book that I checked out and then it was not renewed because somebody had it on hold. That's happened to me a couple of times.
Well, I know that's happened to me, but I didn't know that if we went fine free, that the book wouldn't be able to continue to be renewed.
Right, no, not if it's on hold.
Okay, that makes a difference.
So, Kim, I know that Eugene has gone fine free for children and maybe teens, and I think you told me that the reason for that is because they wanted to try it out or something, but that has been for quite a while. Do you know why they haven't gone completely fine free?
I think it's timing probably, but it's probably coming. I do meet with the director of Eugene on Fridays, and it's 0 to 18 is how many are who they don't charge fines for. But it's something that it's a trend. It's what libraries really feel is an equitable, you know, we're really looking at our services in new lenses through equity, diversity, and inclusion. We're also trying to get away from, you know, barriers that keep people from the library, that, you know, it really opens up everything when your library is fine free. It really does. The community loves it. your patrons love it. People feel like they can enjoy using the library without this fear of, I need to get my books back, or, it's just such a good community service, really. And when we're talking about expanding services that the library this is something we can do now, right? So that's a great way to expand our services in the moment.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Kim. That was very informative. And thank you for your remarks, Catherine.
I'm sorry, Lois, I have one question.
Sure,
I'd like to ask you, Catherine, Francine, or Kim, what do we anticipate is the next step with this then? Where does this go from here?
Well, I think that Kim is looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, a motion from the lab in support of this, a new policy.
Yes.
Anybody else? All right. Let's move on. A library bus stop. This is very quick. I was at the library not too long ago, and I noticed that the bus stop on the west side of the library has been dismantled. And that bothered me because now the bus stop is on the other side of Commercial, and you have to cross 4 lanes of traffic to get over to the library. And on the east side, there is no longer a bus stop actually at the library. It's down the street. And again, you have to go across 4 lanes of traffic. And that really bothered me. So I contacted the Salem Transit District, and they explained everything in an email, which I will have sent to you. I still don't think it's a great situation, because I really think, I worked with kids with disabilities for 30 years, and I know many of them are adults now, and they rely on the buses. And for them, to cross 4 lanes of traffic to get over to the library, talk about barriers, that is a barrier. And anyway, they said that the previous bus stops were not actually ADA compliant. Something about because the bus doors open on the wrong side of the street. The good news is, you will see this in the 3rd paragraph of what they sent to me, is that and this is probably something, I don't know, I would like this distributed at the library or something, that you can actually have a curb-to-curb service for seniors and people with disabilities through Lyft, which is through the transit district. You have to set it up ahead of time, and you have to be eligible. You have to have approval. But there's also something called the Chariot Shop and Ride that is open to anyone 60 and older and people with disabilities. Both of these services would pick up and drop off customers at the front doors of the library. So that's good to know. I was ready to go on a rampage about this, but I don't think it's really necessary. So I will send this out to you. But if you know people with disabilities, they need to know that there is this, lift, and then something called shop and ride that will actually take you to the front doors.
I think this is something that we should work with Chariots on to make sure that the word gets out. So
I
that
agree.
people are aware,
I agree, because
which may increase usage at the library.
Well,
if
also
people are
we have
aware.
the library hasn't been open for 2 years, and so part of this decision was made up because of ridership. Well, people didn't ride for 2 years, so it didn't look like anybody was using it, and they completely took away one of the routes that was specifically to the library. So I don't know, Kim, were you aware of this?
I wasn't, I wasn't here when the library was open before, so I wasn't really aware of like the bus stops and stuff. I know there's been a lot of changes, just with traffic patterns, right? Getting in and out of the library. So I just don't have any information.
Is there a way we could, I don't know, put up a sign at the library or something that says, people with disabilities can contact Chariot to get delivered right to the library, or put it in a newsletter or something?
Yeah, let me talk to staff and see what we can do.
Okay, so I will send out what I got from Chariots to everyone so you can understand it. I don't like it, but if we have these other things, I think that will work really well. I used to see a lot of people using the bus stop when it was where it used to be, and now it's gone. Okay, so any other questions or comments about that, Denise?
Lois, I know that many elderly people have been complaining that they cannot access the library. So this is very important information, but they're already not there. So they're not going to be at the library to see the notices. I would wonder about some way of contacting some of these facilities, Madrona Hills, the fountains, and some of these. My mother-in-law has had difficulty getting down to the library. And so this is very, very welcome news that you have shared with us. I'm going to contact her assisted living, and I'm going to contact to ask how we could disseminate this information, because that would be huge. The other thing that we could do is to contact the Department of Health and Human Services, and I would be willing to take that on to see if they can suggest that, because this is huge.
Well, along with that is maybe Center 50 Plus could put out, because they're always sending out flyers or messages over online, and they could incorporate that. Any senior facility could do that.
Yeah, well, okay. So Denise, if you will contact the Health and Human Services, whatever it is, that would be great. What about the city on Fridays? They always put out a communication thing. Could we have something in that, Kim?
Possibly. The other thing that I was just reminded of is that we have OBS too, Operation Bookshelf. We'll bring books to people. So that's another option if people can't get into the library.
Is that fairly limited though?
Right. I don't think right now it is. She has some openings. But I mean, obviously there would be limitations, but that's another option for people. But I think we could, the city newsletter is, I think Courtney does that. I'm not sure. But that would be a place to put that information, I would think.
Should I contact her, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, you can ask her about it, sure.
And say that we'd like, also, I'm thinking I will contact the Statesman Journal and the Salem Reporter. Maybe we can get an article in the newspaper about it.
So our communications team can also, they can, if you send that information so that we have it, so we can look at it, and then our communications team they can post it both on our site and then they'll contact Courtney and post it and talk to her.
Okay, Kim, will you let me know who I send that to?
Yeah, if you send it to me, I'll make sure it gets to our communication team. Sorry.
Okay. Carol?
Sorry, I just wanted to interject a piece of information in this discussion. Apparently, a great deal of the problems with the buses recently is another aspect of the whole COVID and getting new employees issues. So chariots seem to be really struggling on having drivers specifically.
Oh.
And I don't know how that has played into any of this, but I think it's possible that one way we could, so to speak, use this to our benefit is that it might be cheaper, all things considered, if people did have a library bus stop again. I'm very confused about this ADA thing, but that's neither here nor there. Because, I don't know how much it costs to run, basically a taxi service for people. I mean, it's a lovely thing if people can be brought to the door of the library, but I just don't know how sustainable that is, especially in the present circumstances. So as this goes on, it might be a good idea to kind of point out that, hey, wouldn't it just be cheaper to give us back our bus stop? So that's all.
That's a good thought. Yeah. I will send this, I will make sure you get this too, Carol, because there were other issues about coming on the west side, coming up that steep from the driveway and then having to merge. I don't know. There was several things, but I agree. I mean, I would think it would be cheaper to ride the bus than to have door to door. Plus, from the people I know that do have physical challenges, it is not always real reliable, the Lyft services. So I'm going to put this back on the agenda for next time, just to kind of revisit it, and if that's okay. Okay, let's go to wild ideas, unless anybody else has something else to say. Okay, Denise, did you want to talk about wild ideas?
I didn't really have anything to say about that. I would like to ask Kim if she would kindly put, sorry about that, if Kim would kindly put the information about the open book shelf program so we could learn a little bit more about that. That would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
Wild ideas. Catherine was calculating, I believe, am I wrong, Catherine? Was calculating all of the responses. Is that correct?
That's right, Clarissa and me together. And so in your in the librarian's report at the very end is the summary of the how they all ranked. So everybody voted except for one person, and three ideas came out on top with 5 votes each. And those were idea number 19, adding puzzles and games to library offerings. And idea 20, there's a glitch there. It refers to MakerStation, but it's supposed to be the seed library, right? And number 3 is the idea for checking out people of various working backgrounds to talk with. So those are the top 3, each with 5 votes. I will say that idea 18 got 3 votes and idea 17 got 1 vote, and they're very similar. That still only gives them 4 votes, though. One is for the vending machine and one's for red box style, so-called branch libraries. So maybe at some point, I know you like that, Denise, maybe at some point we can look at that too. So I don't know if we have time tonight, maybe we don't. We could always bump it to March, but I think each of us should be thinking about what do we think each of these 3 ideas would involve in the way of a little bit of research or perhaps lab funding. Who might be interested in taking the initiative on each of these, and finally Kim's input on the potential of these, whether she thinks they're practical or get her input on that. So yeah, Lois, I'm assuming since it's 7, we might want to bump the actual discussion to next time. What do you think?
What I would like to do is, if it's all right with Kim, to have Kim tell us which of these top 3, number 19, number 20, and 21, the feasibility of them, because I mean, we can't do this without the staff and, checking out people. That would, take a lot of people power. So Kim, would you be willing to come back and tell us the feasibility of these?
Sure.
Okay. And then we will have it again on the agenda. So we're going to have bus stops and we're going to have wild ideas for like the 10th time. Denise.
Oh, nope.
Can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. I would like to re-examine Kim's proposal about the fine-free library as well, if we can. I kind of prefer to not let that drop if we can.
Well, we do have a place for action items if anybody's ready for that.
I don't think we have a quorum.
Oh,
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We have 5?
5. Me, you, Denise, Gretchen, and Sarah.
Yeah, okay.
Steve.
There we go.
I don't see Steve. Is he here?
Not anymore, I don't.
And I don't see Francine anymore.
Oh,
Oh,
1, 2, 3.
Well, if you would like to postpone it for the next month, well, we have to see if there's a motion. So are there any action items? Denise.
oh.
You're muted, Denise.
Thank you. My button wasn't working. I would like to propose that we please re-examine Kim's proposal about fine-free, say next meeting, and be prepared to maybe make more discussion and take a vote on it.
So is that are you making a motion?
I think that's an action item, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I'm proposing.
or you can just say, is there a thumbs up about that?
A thumbs up about voting on it now?
No, about
Discussion.
postponing it.
Tabling it for March?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a thumbs up about tabling this discussion till March? I'd like to revisit it.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
I don't know if it makes a difference to the budgeting process for Kim to have a vote on that tonight or not.
Well, I can tell you, you know, lab support for something doesn't guarantee that, you know, we can make it happen, but, you know, we hope that we can. But what we'd like is support first, right?
To piggyback on that too, Lois, if I may, yes, whatever clear direction of support or favor that lab offers to this, that'll be very important. When it comes to then the budget questions, we'll have a whole other separate analysis that we'll have to conduct to just see what the impact of something like this is. And so whether it be with this or any sort of other initiative, when you all and when Kim are clear about the direction or the initiative that you want to take, we'll then assess the rest of the budget stuff later. But tends to be a better practice to not be too concerned about the budget impacts yet until you all know what you want to do.
Okay, what is the will of the group? We have a quorum, but we are missing some people. Should we revisit this? Just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Do we need to revisit it? I mean, given Kim's report today and the discussions we've had up to this point, is it necessary to actually revisit as opposed to making a decision whether we support or not? I mean, follow what I'm saying?
I move that we vote on it tonight, whether we support or not.
Okay,
I second that.
okay. All right. So then now I need I need a motion.
I move
But-
that we support the library's position on going fine-free.
I
Is there a
second it.
Okay, Gretchen seconded. Sorry, Denise. All right, is there any more discussion? Okay. All right, all in favor of supporting the fine-free initiative, signify by raising your hand or doing the checking thing or whatever it is. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Sarah, for making that decision. All right, Kim, success. Okay, anything else? I got to get my hamburger. All right, have a good month. I love you all because of, Valentine's. I hope everybody gets loved up and gets candy and everything.